My friend went missing years ago. Last night, I got a text from their number. My friend went missing years ago. Last night, I got a text from their number. The night was quiet, with only the soft hum of the streetlights outside breaking the stillness. Jordan sat alone in his small apartment, scrolling aimlessly through his phone. It was one of those restless nights where memories and old feelings seemed to float up from nowhere, and tonight, it was thoughts of Leo, his best friend who'd vanished without a trace 3 years ago. Even now, the absence felt raw, like an open wound that refused to heal. Leo had been more than just a friend. He'd been a brother, someone Jordan had grown up with, shared secrets with, and planned a future with. When he disappeared, it was as if part of Jordan's life had been swallowed up by a black void, leaving behind nothing but questions and a persistent ache. Suddenly, Jordan's phone vibrated, pulling him out of his thoughts. He glanced down, expecting it to be a notification or spam. But when he saw the sender's name, his heart nearly stopped. It was Leo's number. For a long moment, he just stared at the screen, a cold chill creeping up his spine. The logical part of him said it was a mistake, that someone else must have Leo's number now. But his fingers trembled as he opened the message. The text was simple, but chilling. I need you. Jordan's heart raced as he reread the words, his mind swirling with a mixture of disbelief and fear. He hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen. After a deep breath, he replied, Leo? There was a pause, and then another message came through. It's me. Meet me at the old playground. The old playground. It was where he and Leo had spent countless afternoons as kids, a place filled with laughter, scraped knees, and half-forgotten secrets. But now, the thought of going there felt ominous, like stepping into a memory that had soured with time. His hand shook as he typed, Is this a joke? Where have you been? There was no response, just the silent glow of his phone screen. Jordan tried to calm himself, telling himself it had to be a prank, some twisted game someone was playing on him. But the possibility, however slim, that it might really be Leo was enough to make him grab his coat and head out the door. The streets were empty as he drove, the silence pressing in on him as he neared the playground. It looked different at night, desolate, shadows pooling around the swings and slides. He parked his car and stepped out, the cool night air prickling his skin. The only sound was the distant hum of traffic and the occasional rustle of leaves. He looked around, searching for any sign of movement, his heart pounding in his chest. The place was eerily quiet, almost as if it was holding its breath, waiting. Suddenly, his phone vibrated again. He looked down to see another message from Leo's number. I'm watching you. Jordan's blood ran cold, and he whipped around, scanning the darkness, feeling as though 1,000 unseen eyes were on him. Every shadow seemed to stretch and shift, as if something or someone was hiding within it. He felt exposed, vulnerable. He took a shaky breath and typed, Where are you? Stop messing around. The reply was almost instant. Come closer. He approached the playground's rusty swing set, the chains creaking softly in the breeze. His flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating the cracked pavement and scattered leaves. Then he saw it, a familiar blue hoodie lying on the ground, partially hidden in the shadows. It was Leo's hoodie. He reached down, his fingers brushing against the fabric, cold and damp. A flood of memories washed over him, and he suddenly felt Leo's presence as if his friend were standing right beside him. He clutched the hoodie tightly, trying to make sense of the situation. Just then, his phone vibrated again. Do you remember that night? Jordan's hands trembled as he typed back, What night? The response came quickly. The night I disappeared. His mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of memory from that night. Leo had seemed normal, maybe a little quiet, but nothing unusual. They'd hung out, grabbed burgers, and talked about their plans. And then, without warning, Leo had vanished, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions. But before he could type another response, his phone pinged again. Look under the slide. Jordan's heart thudded as he turned toward the old metal slide, its surface dull and worn. He slowly approached, the beam of his flashlight illuminating the rusted metal. Kneeling down, he peered beneath it, and his stomach twisted. There, half buried in the dirt, was Leo's favorite watch, the one he'd worn every day since high school. Jordan reached out, his fingers brushing against the cold metal, a wave of dread washing over him. How had it gotten here? Why hadn't anyone found it before? As he pulled the watch from the dirt, his phone buzzed with another message. You remember now, don't you? His hand shook, memories flooding back in fragments. A vague sense of unease, a strange feeling he couldn't shake the night Leo had vanished. There had been something he'd pushed to the back of his mind, something he didn't want to remember. He typed back, his fingers trembling. "Leo, what happened to you?" The reply was chilling. "You left me." Jordan's breath caught. He could almost hear Leo's voice, accusing, pained, echoing through the empty playground. His mind raced, trying to understand. He hadn't left Leo. They'd gone their separate ways that night, each heading home. At least, that's what he'd told himself. Another message appeared. "Come to the forest." Jordan looked up, his gaze drifting toward the edge of the playground, where the trees loomed like silent sentinels. The forest was dense, dark, and unwelcoming. He'd avoided it since Leo's disappearance, haunted by the memories of their last night together. Yet, despite every instinct telling him to turn back, he found himself moving toward the trees, drawn by something he couldn't explain. His flashlight barely penetrated the darkness as he entered the woods, the shadows closing in around him. As he ventured deeper, his phone buzzed again. "I'm waiting." His heart pounded as he scanned the trees, the dense foliage pressing in on him. He tried calling out, his voice shaky and uncertain. "Leo? Where are you?" The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, until finally a faint voice echoed through the trees. "You shouldn't have left me." Jordan froze. The voice was unmistakably Leo's, yet distorted, filled with a bitterness he'd never heard before. He turned, swinging his flashlight wildly, desperate to catch a glimpse of his friend. Shadows danced around him, twisting and shifting, but there was no one there. Another text came through. "Closer." He walked further into the forest, the ground beneath him soft and uneven. His flashlight flickered, casting strange shapes across the trees. Just when he thought he couldn't take the silence any longer, he stumbled upon a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood an old, weathered tree. Something glinted at its base, catching his attention. As he approached, he realized it was a small silver locket, Leo's. He picked it up, and his vision blurred with memories of their childhood, of all the times they'd spent together. Then, a chilling realization hit him. He remembered the night Leo disappeared, how he'd felt uneasy but had dismissed it, how he'd ignored Leo's calls later, assuming it was nothing. Guilt washed over him, sharp and suffocating. A final message appeared on his phone. "Now you understand." Jordan looked around, heartbroken and terrified. The forest seemed to pulse with an unseen presence, the shadows growing darker, closing in on him. Leo's voice echoed once more, soft but filled with an unearthly sadness. "Why did you leave me?" The weight of regret settled heavily on Jordan's shoulders as he whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But the forest was silent, holding on to its secrets. Jordan knew he'd never truly understand what had happened to Leo, but he felt a chilling certainty that his friend had never left this place, bound by unanswered questions and unresolved pain. As he walked back through the forest, clutching the locket and watch, the realization dawned on him that some mysteries were never meant to be solved, and some ghosts would haunt him forever. As Jordan retraced his steps through the forest, clutching the locket and Leo's watch, a deep chill seeped into his bones, an unsettling awareness that he was not alone. Shadows seemed to linger longer, shifting with unnatural fluidity as he moved. The forest had transformed. It was no longer a place of trees and earth, but felt alive with some unseen force, pulsating with sorrow and accusation. He glanced down at his phone again, though he knew no new message would calm his racing heart. Still, something compelled him to open the locket. With trembling hands, he pried it open, revealing a tiny, faded picture of himself and Leo as kids, grinning ear to ear on a summer's day. They looked so happy, so carefree. A knot of guilt twisted in Jordan's stomach, memories of that night resurfacing with painful clarity. He hadn't wanted to remember it, but now the details came flooding back. Leo had seemed distant, quiet, something weighing heavily on his mind. Jordan had brushed it off, eager to get home. He remembered the last look Leo had given him, an expression he dismissed at the time as just another quiet night. But now, in the darkness of the forest, it felt like so much more. As if in response to his thoughts, his phone buzzed in his hand, the screen lighting up with another message from Leo's number. "You're getting closer." Jordan's breath hitched, and he glanced around the forest, every rustling leaf and snapping twig amplifying his fear. Closer to what, he muttered, his voice barely a whisper, as if he were afraid of disturbing the silent sentinels around him. He didn't have to wait long for an answer. His phone buzzed again, and this time the message was a single word: confession. The weight of the word pressed down on him, chilling him more than the night air. Confession? What could he confess? He hadn't done anything, or had he? His mind raced, sifting through memories, trying to pinpoint what Leo could mean. But as he walked, a sense of unease grew, an unshakable feeling that there was something he had buried deep within himself, something he'd refused to confront all these years. The forest thickened around him, the trees growing closer together, their branches intertwining overhead, creating a dense canopy that blocked out the moonlight. His flashlight flickered, the batteries draining faster than they should have, casting only faint, inconsistent light on the narrow path ahead. Then, in the dim glow, he saw something unusual, a faint, almost ethereal glow coming from between the trees. It pulsed softly, beckoning him forward, drawing him deeper into the unknown. Against every instinct screaming at him to turn back, Jordan found himself following the light, mesmerized by its gentle rhythm. The path led him to a small clearing, and at its center was an old, dilapidated cabin, barely visible under the blanket of shadows and overgrown vines. He couldn't remember this cabin from their childhood adventures in the forest. It seemed to have materialized out of nowhere, as if it had been waiting for him all along. The door creaked open on its own, and a wave of cold air washed over him, carrying with it the faint scent of decay and something else, something familiar and faintly metallic. His hands were trembling as he stepped inside, each footfall echoing in the silent, empty cabin. Inside, the dim light revealed an old wooden table, dusty and covered in scattered objects, an old notebook, faded photographs, and a single candle that sputtered to life as he approached, casting a flickering light over the room. Jordan's eyes fell on the notebook, and he felt compelled to open it. His fingers brushed the dusty cover, and as he flipped through the pages, his heart sank. It was Leo's handwriting, scrawled across every page in a desperate, feverish script. They don't know. They don't see. But he left me. He left me alone. The words repeated over and over, filling the pages with an intensity that spoke of pain, betrayal, and fear. Jordan's eyes stung with tears as he continued reading, each word a dagger to his conscience. How could he have ignored the signs? Leo had been reaching out, struggling with something too dark for him to bear alone, and Jordan had brushed it aside. Another page caught his eye, and he felt a chill as he read the words written there. If you're reading this, you're here because I called you back. I need you to know the truth. Jordan's hand shook, the page blurring as he realized the enormity of what he was uncovering. There was a final entry, and he steeled himself as he read it, the words echoing in his mind. In the end, he left me. But I never left him. Not really. And now he'll know what it's like to be alone in the dark. The candle flickered and died, plunging the cabin into darkness. Panic clawed at Jordan's mind, but before he could react, his phone buzzed again, illuminating the room for a brief, agonizing moment. You remember now. A cold hand seemed to grip his heart as he finally understood. He hadn't just ignored Leo's struggle. He'd left him to face it alone, dismissing his friend's silent cries for help, convincing himself that everything was fine. But it hadn't been fine. Leo had needed him, and he hadn't been there. The cabin walls seemed to close in, the shadows twisting into shapes that looked almost human, ghostly figures watching him with hollow, accusing eyes. The air grew thick with an unseen presence, pressing down on him, suffocating him with the weight of guilt and regret. Another text appeared, the words barely legible as his vision blurred with tears. Now it's your turn to feel what I felt. The shadows grew darker, moving toward him, wrapping around him like vines, cold and unyielding. He felt himself sinking, his surroundings fading as he was pulled into a darkness deeper than anything he had ever known. It was as if the forest itself was swallowing him, dragging him into the void that had claimed Leo. Desperation clawed at him as he tried to scream, to call out, to apologize, but the words caught in his throat, stifled by an overwhelming sense of helplessness. And then nothing. The silence was absolute, the world around him a blank, endless darkness. He felt suspended, weightless, a prisoner of his own mind, haunted by the realization of all he had left unsaid, all the ways he had failed his friend. Finally, a voice broke the silence, faint but unmistakable. Leo's voice, filled with the same sadness, the same bitterness. Now you understand. The words echoed in the emptiness, fading into the distance as Jordan's awareness began to dim, his last thought a whisper of regret, a plea for forgiveness that he knew would go unanswered. Thank you for joining us on this haunting journey through. My friend went missing years ago. Last night, I got a text from their number. We hope this story left you on the edge of your seat and gave you a glimpse into the unsettling mysteries that lie beneath the surface. If you enjoyed this tale of suspense, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more chilling stories that explore the unknown. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Have you ever experienced an encounter with the unexplainable? Share your story in the comments below. Your experiences might resonate with others seeking answers to their own mysteries. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the past refuses to stay buried. Stay safe, and until next time, trust no message you don't understand.